I'd like to call the meeting to order. It's 5:34 PM on January 22nd, 2026. Looks like we got quorum. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Sean. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Megan. If there's no discussion, all in favor of approving the agenda, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Next item is regular business. I took some liberty to kind of shorten this because we have a lot going on tonight. And so just have the executive director report and the finance report. Hopefully everybody's okay with that. James, want to go ahead and give us your report?
Yeah, sure. We want to talk about weather emergency. Everybody knows that there is a significant weather event happening tomorrow, starting tomorrow. I believe in the afternoon it's going to start to snow. Temperature's going to steadily drop. So we're looking and preparing for that at the shelter. We've been proactive in purchasing bags of salt, making sure we have enough shovels, and doing those things leading up to this point. So we believe we're well stocked and well ready. We have our policies about I think one of the things you learn is how fast somebody can use a bag of salt when you have a lot of bags and you thought you had enough and then you don't have any more. So we have a procedure out in all the places where people are about how to remove the snow, then put down salt. So we're all on board for that. We're just hoping that we don't get a rash of call-ins and that the traffic is still passable. So we can get people to work. We've had some significant weather in the last few days, but we're going to talk about December. Kim's going to give a little update on weather and where we are with that, about what we're seeing right now.
Yes. Well, we are seeing massive numbers come in right now. December, we had 21 weather emergency days. Now, some of that came on at night, and so they weren't in all day. Recently, we've, of course, had a lot in the building. This last Sunday, we got up to about 197 at one point, and then we were able to take some to the village. But in December, our highest number in early December was 199, and that does not include the village. So we have been very lucky with some overflow shelter. We've also been lucky that we've had some cabins available at the village. So we've been putting 2 pots and kind of mimicking the P24, as I call it, back over at the village, and that's helped as well. But it's going well. Just trying to get used to that many people. Getting used to running P24 and making sure it's going smoothly, and just the ins and outs of operations can be quite daunting at times, but I think our staff has adapted well. I know the guests all seem to be doing well. We've not had any significant events. We've had events, but nothing major at all. So very proud of our staff. I think they've done an excellent job, and especially with more people. One of the trends that I had talked to James about, and I think is maybe interesting, is last year I worked weather emergency the entire time, and we saw a lot of methamphetamine coming in the door. If I didn't take it from someone, it was in my mailbox when I got back the next day or got back to work. This year, less meth use that we are seeing outwardly, but a lot of alcohol. More alcohol than we saw probably the entire time during weather emergency last year. The bus stop, I think, has a little bit to do with that, if not quite a bit to do with that. I always say a blessing and a curse. I helped empty the trash there last night, and there were 6 to 10 gallon jugs of vodka and more than that in pints. So we're seeing a lot of people coming in with very intoxicated. So that's been a challenge and just trying to manage that, and also keep people safe. When people come in that intoxicated, of course, we worry about them if they can't stand or walk and we have to help them into bed. That's a non-emergency call. We've been talking to them with non-emergency and, TRC has been full quite a bit. So, now I think, and Janice, you correct me if I'm wrong, but, I have told staff that in order to call non-emergency, the individual actually has to talk to non-emergency if they want to go to TRC. Or if they want to go to the hospital, they can call 911 themselves. However, I've had people that tried to help into the building and were totally passed out, fell out of bed. I will make a 911 call on those occasions, but it's been busy, it's been winter, and we just kind of hunkering down, and it'll be an interesting weekend.
What do you do with the mess when it comes through the door?
I have like a pill discipline, but so for staff's protection, we have cameras everywhere. I like to see them put it in my box, so I know who took it, and then it was put in the right place. And there's a camera that faces right outside of mine and James's office, so that I can see that go there. That seems to be the safest route that we've been able to kind of figure out. Usually it's more than one person that's there when they find it, and so we've had that checks and balance as well.
And how do you destroy it, or how?
I just take the bag and dump it into the
The
pill dispenser.
diffuser is, chemicals, as liquid, and you put it in a diffuser.
That's right.
So someone medications, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Did you guys, oh, sorry. Okay, is that coming, I just had curiosity, so is that coming in pill form or powder?
No, it comes in a little, usually a little plastic bag about this big, and it's powder, raw. We have taken some meth pipes, but not near as many as I saw last year.
I know, no fentanyl, no, and you guys, xylazine hit yet?
So,
Xylazine, no? That's the, what they call the zombie drug where people are. Yeah, we've had some cases call for at our center now, so it's kind of freaking us out a little bit, because that's next.
we did see one night, I was in forever, and I searched 6 cabins probably 3 times because something was going on, and I knew something was going on. And it ended up being wet, for those of you who don't know, it's cigarettes often gets in the feet, yeah. And so I couldn't find it because it was a cigarette package, but we were able to identify that the next day, and so we've been, I've been really talking to staff about if you cannot find drugs and you are certain that something is being used, and I was there and I was certain we need to start looking at cigarette packs and seeing if we can't locate something. It has a distinct smell.
Yeah.
And so,
What about, so you guys have like Narcan just in case on hand, and then, okay.
we do, and I've been surprised. I work out in 24 quite a bit. How many are actually taking it and taking it out with them for their friends? And
That's good.
I have one guy say that he had a friend that overdosed, and so he was gonna take Narcan out.
We actually have a dispensary.
You got one of the, oh, that's awesome, yeah. The dangers they have, the xylazine starts showing up is that it will like kind of look like fentanyl, but that you still have to do CPR in addition to the,
I'll have to look it up. and see if it works. So I know what I'm looking at. But, okay.
because people are mistaken, that's like, I mean, yeah. So you're still losing people because of xylazine.
Can I ask a question about the practice of pulling in medical treatment for those who are inebriated?
Mhm.
Can I ask you about how your processes goes? I'm just thinking about informed consent and how an inebriated person cannot really provide consent based upon their health and mental awareness. So I'm just wondering how the process goes so that we eliminate anything like medical battery, assault, any of those things, and enforce coercion to someone having to consent to medical treatment? How is that working with their policies?
So if non-emergency comes, of course, they will ask people if they're willing to go to TRC. They have to say yes. And I've had several people yesterday, most recently, that someone has threatened suicide. And they would not take them when we called. We actually even put that phone person on the phone with us. We're talking to them, but when EMS got there, they said they were not a danger to themselves. And if that's the case, they will not take them. We've had a couple of pretty serious threats. I've been one of the people that got two of those, but it always is a fine line. I don't want our folks to get arrested, but then trying to figure out what's credible and not credible. And I don't know, that's been a difficult
I know
piece,
between
I
them
think.
saying like they have suicidal ideation and whether or not to take those things seriously or if they're trying to.
We always
Yeah.
take it seriously,
Yeah.
and we do call.
We do call. They don't have to go, but we do call them. Then we had one lady that was passed out in the snow. We got her inside. She fell out of bed. She was completely out of it until they got there and tried to get her onto the cot, and she really fought them and they took her away. But she was highly intoxicated.
I'm gonna segue into rest of my report if you have anything else about weather emergency. To segue on top of that, I had a meeting this week with, John Darling, Emergency Services County, and people at headquarters. They wanted to talk about the increase for calls for service for the Lawrence Youth Shelter. And since October, sometime in October to currently, I think there's been about 184 calls for service. A lot of those are medical, but it's a mixed bag of calls for service, people calling themselves for service, us calling to have people removed due to behavior and things like that. And so what we talked about are when we call to have somebody removed, we're not calling to say they might need to be removed or they're having a bad day. We're saying that they need to be gone. And so there will be no equivocation about why we're calling emergency. But if we're calling emergency services and we need somebody for TRC, we need MIH to come out to do an assessment, we'll usually try to have the person get on the phone and say, yes, I need services. That way, when they refuse, it's they initiated the call and they refuse. But when we call for emergency services and they refuse, that doesn't. And I know people want to help, but if somebody's not feeling good, they call when there's no, it's not an emergency situation. It's just that we don't know what's going on. So we want to start doing that. And so the conversations we talked about were people that were inebriated. And I told them they were pretty adamant about asking, do we have any medical trained people on staff? And I said, no, that's not what we do. I said, but we need a way to have somebody come to give us a clearance when somebody can't walk. And my threshold is if they can't walk and they need assistance to come in, we need to look at it and ask more questions. And Kim and Wendy will take that on and say, hey, we need to call emergency services or they're okay. And our problem is that we see people every day in the same state. It's normalized for us. It's a normal behavior for us. Our people we see in that state, it's just normal, but we have to take it seriously because those are the people that will expire from asphyxiation because they're inebriated. And so that we started talking about, can we get somebody that's medically trained or intakes? And so we started hashing this out. We're gonna have more conversations about what we can do to have medical on staff to help with the calls for service. Because we don't know what to do. We're not trained, we don't have medical staff at night. And when people come in, that our first thing is how do we take care of this person? Because the best thing we've been doing is getting them to bed and hoping they stay asleep. And that's really dangerous. But we do know that If somebody's over, and they said 0.4, but I think that's kind of high, I think it should be 0.04. They said the limit for TRC is if somebody's over that limit, they'll take up to that limit, but if they're over, they need a medical clearance. And so TRC just says they need to go to the hospital. If somebody refuses to go to the hospital, guess where they're going? They're coming right back to the shelter. And we don't have a clearance, we're not gonna turn them away. And so that's why that revolving door is, and so I'm working with them to identify how we can do more support.
And what
When it
do
comes
they
to-
want you
Who?
to do?
No, we just had a conversation right now. And one of the things we identified is that in the city of Lawrence, there are, a library, for instance, there's people that we serve that can't come to the library. But they can come to the shelter, because they need a place to sleep. But when their behavior is, parallel to the behavior that's exhibited here at the shelter, we don't get the ability to say, you can't come here. We take a lot more. And so when they said whatever their number was for their threshold, I said, I can guarantee you half of our people are well above that number every night. They were surprised, but it's true. And so I just wanted to let them know we do need to start looking at how we can have somebody medically clear people sometimes or do better than what we're doing. It's just a matter of time before somebody under the influence of all this alcohol. I mean, somebody's out there drinking a half a gallon of liquor. It's dangerous, really dangerous. So.
And we hate to see them at the bus stop chugging the liquor, which is what they're doing a lot before they come in, because they know that we're gonna look for it. And if they have a habit of bringing it in, we quietly bring them into another room and make sure that they do not have dark alcohol on them. But then we're seeing them stay at the bus stop until 10, 11 o'clock, or
Can they,
drunk.
can they put it in the locker outside?
They can, they don't. And so we've been encouraging it. So the shelter is not necessarily using the amnesty lockers, but I would say maybe, and this is a high guess, 4 people have used the amnesty lockers outside. They can't get to it once they come in. They tend to bring it in with them instead of putting it in the amnesty lockers. Now, if they're inside and it's cold outside and I catch them with it, it's gonna go into the amnesty locker. And that's what last year, we didn't give anything back, and we're not, in the shelter, we don't. But if they put it in the amnesty locker, we can set the code, they have it in the morning, they can get it and take it with them. But we're just not seeing a high percentage of our folks using those yet. And it could be they're just not used to
The amnesty lockers are out at 24, so that's where it is. We thought about should we install them for the shelter, we still might, but they're out of 24. People are using them, but not for amnesty. They're using it for, my backpack needs to go in there extra storage, and it's secure and it's okay. Yeah, so. Any questions about weather emergency?
We have a couple people with their hands up, like to call on Megan first.
I just wondered, to Christina's question, I mean, obviously, if you have someone incapacitated, you have to call 911. You have to. You can't not. And they can, if they're able, they can do medical treatment or not, or medical staff decides. But I just wondered if there was on intake any kind of thing they sign that says, I understand that if I am incapacitated or whatever the language is, LCS will call an ambulance.
No, not in our intake packet.
That might solve that.
No.
Not about inebriation.
I mean, or for any reason, it doesn't have to be any medical,
It is part of our expectation that, they can come in having been drinking or using, that they just can't bring it on property. But we don't have something that necessarily says, yes, at this point you can call an ambulance, or at this point, we usually just.
I just think it would be more of an like a statement, if for whatever reason, while you are here, you become incapacitated or have a medical emergency, I understand that LCS will call an ambulance. You know, like it's kind of the consent's given up front. It's just might kind of mitigate that.
Yeah, I agree. I think the where we struggle is even with consent when they get there. They change their mind on consent, and that's been something that they don't wanna go once someone gets there, and a lot of times they had a police officer come out and really help me de-escalate yesterday, and she was wonderful. She knew the person, she knew me, we were able to talk to this person and get him calmed down so that he was able to stay. He ended up self-exiting during the night, but at least we got through, kind of that hiccup.
All right, we got a question or hand raised for Jill.
Hi, thanks, Charlie. I just wanted to offer, I know James said that the meeting with Chief Darling was, there wasn't one particular cause, but I would just say that Chief Darling is, really trying to be thoughtful about looking at where there's patterns and how to come up with creative solutions to try to interrupt some of these cycles. There's other projects that for frequent utilization of emergency services like this, and just looking at like, are there creative solutions? So I appreciate that he's having that outreach with LCS, and I think the conversation where it's headed, the way James talked about it, is a great direction. And I would just say, that's just something that LDCFM under Chief Darling's leadership is really trying to be thoughtful about, rather than it being, because I think that's happened. I believe that those, maybe they have spiked, but if we look at calls for service to LCS, there has always been a pattern. It's now that there's just a little more intent and thoughtfulness around, are there some collaborative strategies and interventions that could be introduced here? And, the mobile integrated health team that Lawrence Douglas County Fire Medical has on staff now that can, that's one intervention, but there might be other interventions, like it sounds like James is starting a conversation on. So I just wanted to say, I really think it's a progress to be having that conversation with EMS.
It was a great meeting, Jill.
Good.
And I think everybody was concerned, and what we all accepted as a norm is that the people that we serve, no matter how behaviorally they are outside of some norms, they still need to be housed somewhere. And the thing about it is, the Lawrence Community Shelter houses people that nobody else in the city will or provide services to. And so our population is always at a heightened state. Our norm is where people say, you can't be here. That's our norm. That's the people we have. That's our norm. So, but with that norm, we kind of accept some of those behaviors when we should be saying we need to protect this person because the way we see them, they're not able to protect themselves. So I understand that. But it was a good meeting. It wasn't to point the finger or say blame. It was just to say, what can we identify as maybe some of the causes? And we did say with the weather, where there was an increase in calls. And it is a pattern by the time frame. So
I have to give out a shout out to non-emergency and mobile integrated health. I saw mobile integrated health ladies today. And so I know a lot of them by name now, and they are wonderful when they come out. And they're very good with our guests, and they're very good at listening to staff.
Do you breathalyze people? Is that how you get that number? So
we don't have a number. And some of the things we talked about was, and I talked to Kim about this afterwards, is that might be the threshold when we say we want to provide a breath sample so we can see
where the danger is.
Services. And that way, because if we say we care about people, it has to be because we care, not because they're inebriated or behavior. It's only because if you're in a situation, it's hard. It's going to be hard for us to know you're safe if you're trying to sleep in that situation. So we talked about a lot of things, and I feel good that we're going to come up with some ways to do that. So,
I have a question just about the emergency response. Just thinking last year and thinking about how the village, we had a power outage, and just thinking about the increase in heating units and the how village and, those heaters are gonna get going on, right? Is there a safety protocol based upon what we've learned in the past to kind of alleviate what could be like circuit breakers, power outages, what that means to have a second generator? Are those like conversations you're having? Or is that just something that we're, hey, things happen, we have a process, but we can't make that process any better because the process is best. Is that something that you are thinking about or talking about within?
I've learned to reset a heater. The palette 24 is showing us a lot of the things that we saw with the village. However, we've got 2 people in there now, and so 2 sets of things being plugged in. Our DSA office, if you want to unplug everything, you can't use the microwave, so our plugs everything. So we're really learning. My 3rd day there, all the fire alarms went off and we couldn't get them to stop because they were Bluetooth. So we're making some changes there. So I think as we see it go, we're making changes.
I can say that in Pilot 24, the way smoke detectors were wired in, people learned to disconnect them in the beginning. And so we also learned to not put in the hardwired ones and buy battery operated, because people have been setting off the breakers so the smoke detector doesn't work, and they're breaking the clips, and our maintenance guys go in and reset them because there's a lock on, but you can trip it somehow with squeeze it, and so we figured it out. So people are removing smoke detectors, they're destroying smoke detectors,
They're cutting the
they're
wires.
cutting the wires, and so these are the same people, and we can identify who was in the cabin tonight. But we're forced with, do we exit somebody? And it's really cold right now, but we try not to do that. We do write-ups, but that's the whole thing. We're gonna figure out a way to do that, because it's part of our staff that continuously writes these write-ups, and every day they have to go in there, they have to clean up, and they have to report that smoke detector is down. And people are just getting write-ups with we don't have a way to say, quit smoking there or else. There is no or else. It's like, please don't do that, and this is why. And then we can move people inside because they don't have the smoke detectors in there, but we still have people outside. And so it continues. So it's just, as far as emergency protocols, generators, we haven't talked about anything like that. So it can go on my list to think about, but at the shelter, we're pretty comfortable about our power system. The village is its own thing, so that's a different conversation when we talk about safety
The
protocols.
generator, the village, that hasn't happened then?
No,
Okay, no, there was talk about it.
okay. Not that I don't think we have.
I think the biggest concern with the village is the bathroom situation. And just.
And I think that's been resolved, that's working. They do what they need to do, put their bathrooms on pads. They didn't do anything with the sewer system, but just for those restrooms to be stable and not tilted is great. People are not sabotaging them. They're sabotaging probably 24 now, but not the village. And so what we equate that with is the same introduction to the village, the way people accept it or didn't accept it. That's the same mentality that's going on in Pilot 24, is accepting or not accepting it. And it's something that we have to just get through right now. And with the weather, it changed. When it was summer, it was a little bit better. But we started right at the end of summer when we opened. It was a little better, but but it's a little different now. I know we're frustrated by it, and that lady's not gonna sing on when I'm talking today. I wanted to talk about, we had our paychecks implementation that wasn't that right? It did not go as planned. We had that preparation meeting with the exec team. And did they come and talk to the full board paychecks, or was it just the exec team?
Just the executive.
And we had the date, and I know we reiterated that date before that meeting, during that meeting, and after that meeting. And when the date came up, which was the 20th, I believe, of December, all we could hear was that they thought it was the next week. that they were starting. So they were a week behind in setting things up. So the setup didn't take place in the beginning of that week. It started near the latter part of that week and next week. So our first payroll was a failed payroll. Time was missing. It was things that had to get caught up. We ran a second payroll to catch up when people did get paid, and people, because we have early pay, people get a lot of early pay. They sign up to get their pay, so they know when their check is coming. Even pay it was Friday, by Wednesday, we're getting a lot of indications that people's check wasn't what they expected. So we started trying to fix that then. We submitted it by Friday, but they put a hold on it. And so whatever was in there, people got paid. What we knew people needed to be paid didn't get sent out until Monday. People got paid. And then more people said didn't get their check. So I ran another payroll. So as I ran the next payroll on Thursday of last week, we get more people after that saying they didn't get all their pay. So I ran a third payroll. And so we should be caught up for the first payroll. I ran payroll for tomorrow, which went through. I haven't heard anything negative about it, but somebody even told me that they got all the money that they were missing from the first check and their check looks good. So hopefully that's good. But subsequently, all the other things that were supposed to go and get signed up, it's still in the process of finalizing and getting it to where we need to be. Our 401k implementation, we're having conversations now about some discrepancy if they can offer the plan or what did we really want when it came to 401k. Think it's gonna get fixed, but there's some questions. And now we just got an email about that. Was it today, Karen? From Matthew, did you see the email?
For 401k?
Was it 401k or that
No,
was
that's something that we've got to get sorted
the union
separately. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and so we see that the first time people's garnishments weren't getting taken out, so people were concerned. That got fixed. Union dues are not being taken out, and we know they have that information because all that was set up. But it's going to be the follow-up that I'll talk to them about where we at with getting this set up, who didn't get theirs taken out, and so I'll be on the phone with them either tomorrow or maybe Monday, depending on how this payroll goes, depending on what we get back. But those are the things we know we need to get set up. People weren't getting their benefits cards for their insurance, even though it was set up. We know it's set up because I downloaded the app and I was able to see my benefits. Some people weren't able to do that. And then the vision card got caught up. They had to make a change and now that's populating. So there was just some things that didn't go right on the implementation. And so we're trying to work through that. And this is not a great time for that to happen. But we're working through that.
What does early pay mean?
So there's a lot of pay companies that let people get paid. If you work today, you can get your money today. They can get paid early. We had that with Accent too, where they can, and it's not from us, it's from a company that gives people loans. It's not only China, for Accent, it was it was Zoom on paycheck, Accent, I don't know what it is on paychecks, but people get paid early. Yeah. So they
Is that something, is that offered though by the,
I don't know who offers time. I think
The
time
time-
is it's just a card, but
the time is the one paying early?
some people, yeah.
Not,
But there is a program with paychecks that if you wanted to get some of your hours in advance, they offer that as a way to do that. But that's on that company that does that. They give you somebody loan and they actually put a lien on their paycheck for that, for whatever, how much they want to get paid. So people do it, and I don't suggest people do it, but people do it and receive it a lot. So it was Wednesday and people were complaining. I said, you're not even Friday. So my thing to say it's not even payday was not that you're not gonna get it, we still have time to fix it. So I was saying, okay, I understand that, we're trying to fix it. But yeah, the last thing I wanted to talk about uh, is that I'm starting to work on, I reserved the DoubleTree in for a gala next year. The date is gonna be tentatively for the 5th of November. So I already got a contract ready to go with the DoubleTree and got that reserved just in case we wanna do it there or we wanna move it somewhere else, but I got that reserved just in case we repeat what we did at the same place. And I think they're gonna offer some of the same, in-kind things that they offered us before, which was great. So I want to let everybody know that. That's about all I have immediately.
Okay. Thanks, James.
You're welcome.
Let's go on to the finance report and. Oh, yeah. Share the screen again. Let's see. Where do you want me to go?
Let's go to, the balance sheet. All right, so, cash at the end of the year stood at $633,897, down from $754 in November, $754,000. This represents a 34% decrease year over year, reflecting capital investments made in pallet 24 and then, timing of grant collections. Current cash provides about 2 months of operating expenses. Total net assets is $3,767,171. Current year earnings is $99,566, with a total equity increase of 34.6% year over year. Total fixed assets sits at $3,613,817 net of depreciation. We still have $15,250 in construction in progress, which represents a couple of the PC engineering bills for the interior remodel. Once that remodel is completed, that will be moved into fixed assets. Still pending pallet 24 cabins. In this case, will also be pending interior remodels based on the arrangement that we made with the city. So even though the city has the CDBG grant, because of our cash flow concerns, we're having the city receive all invoices for our interior remodel and also paying the invoices on our behalf. So that will be an audit question that I'll have on how we're going to make the transfer of assets from the city to the shelter. So I would anticipate that we would get answers during our audit and during the city's audit. Liabilities, so the next page. Current liabilities sits at $139,550, which is down from $140,000. It includes $78,891 in accrued payroll and $7,889 in accrued payroll taxes. Accounts payables is sitting at $52,770. Long-term liabilities, we're at $323,658 on the City of Lawrence loan for a mortgage, with total liabilities at $463,209. This is where I normally tell you all that all bank accounts, prepaid accounts, and liability accounts are reconciled monthly with no unexplained differences. Bank reconciliations have been provided to Charlie for oversight, ensuring the reliability and accuracy of these financial statements. For the month of December, if you want to move on to the next page. So I'm still trying to summarize statements of revenues and expenditures because my financial statement report to you guys is 23 pages. So for the month of December, we had total revenues of $187,875 against a budget at $81,105. If you remember, I did not quite have good data to have accurate month-to-month values. So we took our budgeted amount and split it by 12, which is why 81,000 is all we budgeted for. So it looks excellent. We exceeded our budget by $106,770, which is 132% above budget. So we really did excellent revenue wise in December. total operating expenses were $331,828, compared to a budgeted $356,342. We had a favorable savings of $24,514, was just 7% under budget. We did experience a net loss for the month of $162,512 for the month, but still $129,163 better than the budgeted loss of $291,675. In December, we received $46,319 in donations. Again, taking what we had for individual donations and dividing it by 12, that made the monthly budget about $8,334. So we exceeded 556% of our budget. We recorded $39,922 in revenue and gala revenues. Much of that was donations and pledges. And then we recorded $14,512 in in-kind donations. We have a better picture of our gala performance now that we've gone through December. I believe there's only one individual that I've not been able to invoice because I'm not sure how much I needed to invoice them for. And I could get with you on that. Yeah. It's one of yours. It's one of yours. It's not you, but it was one of your guests that you invited to the gala. And I know her name. And she was waiting for her required minimum distribution that's coming up in February. So that's the only one that I have invoiced. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So everybody's invoiced. And so, we have total gala revenues of $85,823. Less, that doesn't include the one that I'm missing, with expenses at $11,710, which primarily were in November. So our net proceeds is sitting at $74,000. So we're pretty close to what we had shared on social media. Expense performance, we had again $331,828 in operating expenses. Payroll was our biggest expense as per usual, $246,383 for the month. It was 11% under budget, continuing our year-to-date favorable variance. Groceries was our second highest expense at $30,154. That was 41%, actually 141% of our monthly budget. So that's mostly due in part to weather emergency, and the increase in usage at Pallet 24. Operational supplies was 50% over budget at $12,005, and repairs and maintenance was at $3,302, so 66% under budget. Year to date, we are showing $4,268,328 against a year-to-date budget of $4,473,260, which represents a $204,932 shortfall, which is 5% under budget. Operating expenses totaled $3,972,923 compared to a budgeted $4,276,010, creating a favorable savings of $303,000, 7% under budget. The net year-to-date surplus again stands at $99,566 versus a budgeted break even, which represents $99,566 favorable variance from budget expectations. For total year-to-date revenues, we're at 95% of our budget. I think initially when we did our 2025 budget, I expected to be able to obtain a grant for step-up beds that did not get realized. And that was an expected $150,000. So it's quite big. So that represents most of the difference there. But donation wise, we have exceeded our budget. We only anticipated $127,200 in donations from individuals, businesses, and religious. We got $167,982. This is not gala related. This is separate from the gala. So that's 132% of the budget that we received and realized. Events and fundraisers total is $91,093. And again, so that's 85,000 or 86,000 really, from the gala, and 5,000 that we received from our community auctions tables around town. In kind, we received $113,858. Half of that is from Aaron at ATech, who generously donated in kind the change orders to finish pallet 24. Other income, we had $535 from unclaimed property from the state. And then we also had, which is unbudgeted, and then other unbudgeted revenue that we received was 15,838 from our insured cash sweep. So having all of our cash designated to receive interest benefited us about $16,000. Expense performance wise for the year, again, 3.975 million, which is 93% of the budget that we had at 4.275. And again, payrolls, the biggest one, we spent 3,061,874. Spent 92% of our budget on payroll, of what we budgeted for payroll. And then for groceries, we went about $46,000 above our budget. We budgeted 150,000 for groceries and spent 196,000. So 131% of our budget. Professional services was our third highest utilization of cash. We spent about 179,000 versus 190,000 budgeted, which is 94% of the budget. Much of that has been because of Access professional employer organization services, which were for this year we budgeted to the switch with paychecks. So we should see some savings there. But I do anticipate that in professional services will be still somewhat high this year. Probably not to that extent. Because this is the final year of the collective bargaining agreement. So I expect us to have some attorney's fees, at least starting in the last quarter of this year. Utilities was the fourth highest at $142,804. Exceeded our budget about 7%. And operational supplies, we went above 15%. 110,789 versus 96,000 that we budgeted for. Overall, we went 132% above our budget for revenue, 7% under budget for our expenses. I think we did okay. Not great, but okay. Again, our biggest savings was payroll. I think that might have been our biggest savings, Grace. But not great. As expected for nonprofits, December donation surge of $46,000. That's where we see the highest. Now that I have good data, again, I'm going to be able to forecast month to month based on what we budgeted annually. And I do expect to see increased operational costs. So I am a little concerned about that going into this year. I think we still need to exercise expense management discipline while we continue to find ways to fundraise more. I don't have any accounting changes that I haven't mentioned to you from past meetings. We are accrual basis. We'll be audited accrual basis again this year. I think the only other thing that I wanted to point out was volunteering hours in December was lower than expected. We had 116 hours in November volunteering and only 21 hours in December. I don't know why that is. I think that is unusual. I don't have previous data, but I would have expected more people would want to volunteer. That, that represents, for the year, we had 687.7 volunteer hours in total, which represents 0.33 full-time equivalents of paid staff capacity. In terms of dollars that I can't record because it's not a specialized thing, that represents $21,223 of in-kind labor. I think that's all. Oh, the last thing that I have for you is I got our audit list. Charlie and James have signed our audit engagement letter. I'll just remind you both that this time there's also a tax engagement letter that needs to be signed. But I'm gonna be getting started on our audit here next
The
week.
tax engagement letter just needs James.
Okay, so James needs a reminder that you need to sign the tax engagement letter, but otherwise, that's it. We need to have our audit done or as close to done by mid-April as possible so that we can get it over to the city as we are a component unit of the city. And our financials get incorporated into theirs. But that's it. Does anybody have any questions for me?
I just I believe, I mean, it's great news, right? Great job controlling costs. But just to confirm that 99,000 is the actual surplus you've done the accrual, like what you ID'd as the liabilities, which were about 149,000, are taken into account. That's what I thought. Yay. Great job.
Especially given where we were
Yeah.
in May.
Yeah, May.
Wasn't sure we were gonna get through the year like that. Okay, if there's no other questions, I think, just like a motion to accept the December financials and, acknowledge receipt of the audit engagement letter.
So moved.
All right, is there a second? Is there any discussion? Do you have a question? Okay.
No, I was trying to do both of those.
Okay,
things.
thanks. Okay, there's no other discussion, all in favor of the motion to accept the December financials and acknowledge receipt of the audit engagement letter, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Next item under new business, first item is really just about our, our annual kind of board organization work. So apparently last year, the state legislature changed the statute around KOMA, Kansas Open Meetings Act. And I didn't catch that when it happened, but I did learn that the Attorney General published a new guide, a Citizen's Guide to Open Government. And the thing that is consequential is any group that's basically needs to comply with KOMA, which we do. Any group such as that when it creates any committees, those committees also have to comply with KOMA. So our practice has been to be pretty quick to make a committee to do some work. And to continue that, we would need all those committees to also follow KOMA. So this would apply to our executive committee. It applies to the annual performance review committee we threw together, the finance committee we threw together, the fundraising committee we threw together. And there's one other committee we had.
Operational.
Yeah, that was a committee, we dissolved that one, but it's like we've had historically, we've created these committees as a way to get the board engaged in work. And at this point, I consulted with the city to say, am I reading this right? Is this correct? And it turns out the city has had to make some similar changes with their advisory boards because those are also created by the city commission, so they have to follow these same rules. The only thing in our bylaws that currently, as the bylaws are written, the bylaws say we shall create an advisory committee. So that's the only thing that feels like we have to have that. And James, yes, that advisory committee now does need to follow KOMA. So since you're kind of the manager of that committee, ensure that your meetings are public. If anybody wants to be receive notice that when you're meeting, you have to provide them notice of that. There's not a lot of requirements for KOMA, but it does feel like it changes the game a bit, so. What I'm throwing out for consideration is, let's just avoid creating committees and assign tasks to individuals. So, for example, we could say, in the case like this recent, when I had asked Megan and Shannon, could you guys come up with a new process for the annual review for the executive director? It could have ended right there, but instead I brought it here and said, let's form a committee, and then assigned it to the committee, right? So just stopping in that last step, we don't need to develop a committee to do something, but we should still be able to assign things. And I would think, the board can make those assignments as a whole, or I could say, are we agreeable if the board president says, hey, can you do this? And if you say yes, then that's a proper assignment. So that's how I was thinking is, if you get an assignment from the board president or the whole board, however you accept the assignment, you are kind of the sole person responsible for that work. Now, it's possible you might want to consult with your colleagues on the board, but knowing you have to follow KOMA, you can't, go throw together a committee. What you could do is make sure you don't violate KOMA by never meeting with the number of us that would constitute a violation, which we have a 9-member board. KOMA's rule is a majority of the board, so that would be 5. So as a rule of thumb, assuming that it's an assignment that I've tasked someone to do, then you've got now 2 people involved. That person that has the assignment could consult with up to 2 other board members, and then you've hit the cap. So a way to be compliant is like, going back to that example, if I said to Megan, would you mind taking us on? If she says yes, then I would say, just be mindful, you shouldn't talk to anyone else outside of our open meetings. You should only be talking to at most 2 other people. So then she could have consulted with you, Shannon. Chikani, she could have consulted with you, and then that deliberation is contained without violating the Open Meetings Act. The thing I would say is a kind of a keep in mind is, if you've been consulted by one of the people with an assignment, you can't continue to talk to other board members, because then that becomes a serial communication violation. So we can't all have the deliberation outside of the open meeting by taking turns, who's talking to the next person.
Telephone tag.
Exactly. So if that instance, if Megan was given that task and she consults with Shannon and Chikani and keeps me in the loop about it, that's it. And Shannon can't talk to anybody, Chikani can't talk to anybody. It just needs to be, if someone asks, you'd say, at the board meeting, we'll have that discussion. So it kind of says, as a rule of thumb, never talk to anybody except at most 2 people. And then if you're one of those people being consulted, don't talk to anybody else. Does that feel fair enough? I think the most important thing is we just need to stop making committees, and we need to dissolve all of our current committees. And that's the most clean way to say we're going to avoid any of these KOMA concerns. And then the advisory committee, one path we could take is amend our bylaws, so we aren't compelled to create an advisory committee. And then if James wants an advisory committee, he can do that. James is not a board member, James is not the board, so he can do all these committees however he wants. We just are kind of restricted. So how do people think about that? I have one more part of this, but I wanted to stop there and get thoughts on.
So just to understand the role he could play that none of us can.
Well, that was the next part I was gonna get into.
Oh.
I just wanted, first of all, are we comfortable with, let's get a motion on the table to dissolve our committees? And then, does that feel like a fair approach to take? Do I have another, oh, go ahead, Shikani.
Yeah, I need to wrap my mind around that.
Yeah, it is a
Yeah,
bit. I
I
didn't
need
quite understand
to,
it.
yeah, I need to kind of look at that research kind of, um, yeah, I get what you're saying,
Mhm.
definitely, but I need time to process it.
Okay. I did share out that open government guide.
Yes, yes,
So I'd say definitely read through it. I
okay,
consulted with the city, and basically I consulted with Brandon, who's uh, kind of my primary contact with city administration. He he confirmed that's how the city's also interpreting it. I believe, Christina, you're on an advisory board for the city, and they
We had to take down the committees that we were looking at to examine policies and agreements.
Yeah.
Or we did attempt to do it, but it's so difficult to get into videos, the city hall and the virtual spaces.
Yeah.
Leah Roslyn had a very difficult time trying to connect us, so we had to end up dissolving those committees.
So I do think that as different organizations are kind of addressing this, the practical solution is you just avoid the practice of creating committees.
Yeah.
so, and
This
I
is
guess my concern would be like, well, what do we do with, for instance, so with the executive committee, right?
Mhm.
How is that, with some of it, I understand. And that's why I said I just need time to process it. And I have looked at the information that you sent out to us the other day, but
Okay.
um, yeah, my concern is how would we understand what's taking place? Are you saying that that just would be no more? Those meetings, those things wouldn't be taking place? You know what
They
I mean?
would not be.
That's what,
Yep.
like with the executive committee or,
Yep, those committees would be dissolved.
okay,
Our bylaws don't compel us to have an executive committee, they authorize us to have one.
okay.
So I think question would be, do we want to have an executive committee? If so, it needs to follow KOMA.
Mhm. And that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I just need to kind of think about it. And if I have those additional questions, I just don't know, yeah, without research and thinking this through with the way it was just kind of put out, like we can only consult with certain people or don't talk to other people. And then we're like, well, we're gonna get that information in a meeting. Um, yeah, I need to think about that.
That was I was just imagining like the cleanest way to then still task work is to do it only to individuals. Like we could say,
Right, right,
Shannon, will you take this on?
right.
Instead of giving it to a committee, which is just a
But
different
then
practice.
we would have, so then we would, so when Shannon completed the task, it would be something we're all aware of or be addressed. It just would have to be addressed at the board meeting.
Correct.
And the way
Correct.
we would keep track is the task is delegated to someone,
To an individual, not to a
right? The
committee.
individual or the
Mhm.
two people. Okay, yeah. I
Well,
just
the
need
two
to think
people thing
about
is
it.
kind of like my way of saying,
But people would have no.
you guys don't have to feel like it's only you that has to figure something out if it's a task you take on. But do not talk to the whole board because that has to happen in an open meeting.
Meeting, okay, okay.
Well, and I'm concerned about waiting, if we have any of these meetings. Because now that we're aware of this, that would be
Yeah, I
like
agree.
an intentional.
Yeah, I agree. I
violation.
feel like as soon as I understood this, I thought, oh man,
No more meetings,
we need to probably put an immediate cease on the committee thing.
yeah. No
So-
more.
The advisory committee that was just formed, then what is the relationship gonna be going forward with the advisory committee and us then if we're not, if that
So-
connection's not there?
So the
Right.
advisory committee is, in our bylaws, it says that we shall create one, so that shall is usually like, there's not an option.
Yeah.
So that has to exist. It will need to follow KOMA.
Yeah,
So their meetings need to be open to the public.
but we're not saying to dissolve that.
Nope, I don't
We're
think we
just gonna
can,
have it fall under, okay.
I think we would need to change our bylaws to dissolve that, but other committees we create as a board, and like tonight I thought, let's just get a motion out there to say,
Yeah,
you know, we will dissolve all existing committees other than the advisory.
And just to understand it just further, so again, it's just delegation of tasks
To
to board members, for working board members, for working board. And we can only delegate that task to an individual. We
Correct.
can't delegate it to two people and just say, these two people are.
I mean, it feels like you're trying to kind of say a committee, but not a committee.
Yeah.
So I'd rather just
want
make it
to
really
avoid
clear.
Any kind of confusion in
Yeah.
terms of it saying like.
Like one
Yeah.
other thing on our agenda tonight, I wanted to talk about the public comment policy. It needs to be updated or reviewed annually according to the policy. We're a little overdue. And I'd like to assign that to someone. That would typically be like, well, the exec committee can do that. So we've been doing a lot of work. The exec committee has been tasked just collectively. And that just needs to stop. So we need to say, which, that feels like it could be a good job for the secretary. So like, all right, you're gonna be in charge of correspondence with the board. That's a pretty classic job for a secretary to do. So the policy that explains how the public can talk to us, that's you're the steward of that policy. So that's kind of my brain is, it's, in some ways it's kind of nicer because you can say here, clearly it's your job to do this. So instead of a committee where sometimes it gets a little bit lost, like who's actually pushing it forward. Back when we had the exec committee, it was assigned to review all the policies and decide what goes. I mean, that was another one of those, it's really the secretary that would typically take that on. Establish the policies and procedures for the board. We never really got that tackled. That was an early job we took on from the old interim executive director who said the board should review every policy.
Well, and I think to Connie's point, which is a lot of times we get something, we have a day to look at it, and we're here and we're trying to decide what to do about it. I think when we do those assignments, let's say we're gonna do the public comment policy, then our procedure should be in February's meeting, it's on there as a draft and we review it and everybody's comments can be made. And that we don't even try to adopt it then until.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Right.
Right, so that we have time to look at these things and think about it before we're being asked to make decisions about
Yeah.
them.
That's a great idea.
I also want to make note that the operations committee worked like as an ad hoc at some point. Like we knew there's going to be some information that came down, especially throughout our January, December months. What happens in operations need to have really a look at and a lens on the board. So could it be like semantics, right? It can be like task force. I mean, is that what we're kind of?
You can't, that's, yeah.
That sounds extreme, I don't know.
No.
But it's not a committed recurring.
No, I think legally that'd be same thing.
Trying to mess with words.
What if we do partying?
I mean, it adds the expectation is that our deliberations are public. So I think this is the cleanest way to do it. So other thing I was gonna throw out there, and John kind of jumped in on this, but one other way that I think we could handle matters is essentially to ask staff to do the work that might look like board committee work. And so James doesn't have to follow KOMA because staff doesn't have to do this. James can still engage the board. So it's, I think, very practical for James to think, before every board meeting, I want to engage with the treasurer to go over the financial report before it comes to the board. Right? That'd be a pretty standard thing. At the health department, we'll just share. That's our practice. We have a financial review meeting and we go through everything that's going to go to the board. The health board they're the first public group that gets to see it. But we've already gone through the whole packet. So we know, what our accountant is going to present. And we tell her, oh, no, change that, because we have a written kind of report and then we have the financial statements. And so that's a fairly standard protocol, I think, in a lot of organizations. So I would imagine, and that's a staff driven thing. There's actually no board member when it comes to that financial review meeting. We then just present the finances to the health board, discusses it. works really well. So I think one way we could also have board engagement is James would say, I want to involve, this board member and this board member in this work. One of the committees we have is the fundraising committee. Well, if that goes away, but James knows it's critical to engage our board in fundraising, then he might say, okay, how many what's the cap? He knows he can't have more than 5 of us in a meeting, a staff meeting. So he would have the same kind of calculation. Well, we had a fundraising committee of 4 of us. So maybe he says, I'm gonna engage those same 4 people, but it's a staff committee. I think you guys already, as you talked about it, it sounds like you have a staff committee anyway that deals with that, right? So one way to engage the board is you invite, not the whole board, you invite some of the board members into those staff committees. And now you're not,
Basically up to 4,
right,
right?
just don't take turns on us, we gotta still have that. If it's only 4, it's the same 4, you're not gonna flip it around, right? Otherwise, sounds like you're trying to get slick.
And then
So-
after that, in theory, then, that happens. And then the board, when we have the open meeting, we discuss what the concern is. I guess my, as I'm rolling it through my mind, is how do we, as the complete board, understand what's going on? I understand in the scenario where we're delegating tasks, well, we have that and that person is coming back. Is it gonna go the same way with like in the example you just gave with the staff?
I think it would then kind of be on James to report on work that he's doing. So like the financial example I gave, I
Okay,
think it would be pretty easy to have, like what I already know happens is Karen is already working with James. That stuff has been kind of shown to the exec committee, in some occasions, but that kind of conversation, and we created the finance committee with the idea that we would start to make this more routine. Well, we don't need a finance committee, we just need James and Karen to probably get this stuff done, and then if you want to bring it to the treasurer, maybe that's the process. But it's not a committee anymore. It's just staff doing staff's work and engaging the board as staff deems appropriate. And if we think James should involve the board in things, then we would tell him, hey, we want you to involve the treasurer in that review process. And, that's on us as we do our supervision of our only employee. We just ask that he do that if that's what we want. Or if like on the fundraising, we say, well, great job, you're doing all this. We want you to engage, these board members in that work. And then, so it's kind of shifting it from a board committee structure to more staff driven and board engagement. So.
And I actually think that's more, a more traditional model of, I mean, I'm a component unit of the city, also the housing authority. My board drafts no policies,
Right,
I draft
right.
them, I take them to
Yeah.
the board, they tell me what changes they want. I go make the changes and I take it back to the next meeting.
Right.
And so I think we sort of came out of a board-run organization.
Right.
And we are changing to more of a, because we're subject to KOMA. And I mean, I think at some point, anytime we want to create a committee, we have to say, is the juice worth the squeeze?
Right.
Because the squeeze is all the public process
Right.
that you have to go through, make sure people can attend, provide notice, et cetera, et cetera. But I think sort of this model is, it's the health department's model, it's our
Yeah.
model, I know it's most.
Yeah.
agencies' model.
At the health department, the one, so our executive director brings in, I don't know if I'm not sure which of the officers, but there's a consultation for developing the agenda for each board meeting. And that's run by the executive director. So the agenda is pretty much done. He goes through, here's what I'm planning to go over in the meeting. And then the board chair facilitates the meeting. But they don't do anything else, really. They're not, I mean, they're consulting in that the meeting the week before the agenda gets published. But the process is really much more driven by staff. And I think that's kind of what I'm used to. Other boards I've been on, that's also the case. So I think this is probably gonna push us to become a little more traditional, which is probably, this is good timing, I think, in some ways. A couple years ago, I think the board had to be, I mean, if this rule was in place 2 years ago, we would have been early. It would have been tough. Because we really had to.
There have been a lot of public meetings.
Would have been a lot of public meetings, yeah, exactly. Which is probably fine, we'd have followed the rules back then, but it's like, if these are the new rules. There are ways we can either just, have a lot of public meetings, that's one option. Or we can say, you know what, let's ask staff to do more and engage us. And then if we have tasks to give ourselves, let's just do that to individuals, not to committees.
Well, and the way I would put the thing that you described earlier, which is if we want a board liaison to the finance, then we assign somebody to be the board liaison to their meeting,
Yeah,
on our
exactly.
meeting.
Right, it's their meeting. And I think that's not inappropriate, right? If one of the things we expect is to be engaged somehow, like what are the appropriate ways that the board should be engaged? Finances are obviously there, fundraising seems pretty critical. So that shifts kind of the organizational, logistical piece of work over to staff. And then on our end, we're just changing our practice of delegating tasks to individuals rather than to committees. Other thoughts on that? I think then all we need is a motion to dissolve all of our existing committees, except in the case of the advisory committees.
I still am like, I get it, but I don't want to I just, like I said, need to wrap my mind around it before I can vote on any of it. It's I'm the first time hearing it, kind of just processing what it all means. So for me, that's how I feel about it at this point.
We need to make a motion.
How are others feel about it? I mean, yeah, I'd like to have a motion, but
I'll move the motion and I need that.
dissolve all committees
to dissolve all
except for
committees,
the advisory.
Except for the advisory.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thanks, John. Is there any other discussion? Connie, I realize it feels like it's being pushed quickly, but I do think it's important to, in this situation, for us to discontinue this practice. It just feels like, as soon as we're aware of this, we shouldn't be delaying,
Right.
I think discussion would be, it sounds like we could reform a committee anytime we chose to,
Yeah, we can.
as a board. But it would just have to be public if it met certain criteria.
And that's my concern. I think that we're, well, I don't want to say all the things, that I'm thinking without doing, like I said, research and understanding. But I think it sounds like we're trying to circumvent some of the concerns and other things that have been brought up, not just the part where we're understanding that the legislative or with the attorneys general, like I said, I kind of went over the book and through the book that you provided the other day. So I'm just with something we can definitely revisit. I just want to, go on record with my concerns with hearing things like the night before or, the day before and just not, having time to process it or go forward. And there definitely need to be, some changes, and I like how this is going. We have good news with our financial, our board is looking great and healthy. But yeah, I just wanted to voice my concerns there because you asked.
Well, thanks, Connie.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion on the motion? No. All in favor of the motion to dissolve all of the committees except for the advisory committee, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Thank you, Chaconi. Motion passes. The next item is officer elections. So take a look at our bylaws. I passed those around for those that are in the room. Every January, basically, it's our time to select officers for the calendar year. And there are 4 officer positions: the president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. So this is our time to nominate people to serve in those roles. I'd like to start with the president position and open it up for nominations.
I would nominate Charlie to continue as board president.
Okay.
Do we need a second for that? Is that how this works, or do we just one
No,
nomination?
just
Good.
put it on the table. Is there anybody else that wants to make a nomination?
Am I gonna do more? Nominate somebody, or?
Is that something you would be up for, Steve?
Not right this moment.
No.
Oh. Hold that thought.
Okay.
Are there any other nominations for president? Okay. Then go ahead and have a vote. I guess. All in favor of electing Charlie as the president for another year? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes.
Charlie didn't say nay.
I didn't say nay.
Now, I'm sorry, say that one more time. You could barely say that.
All right, I will say though, this has to be my last year doing this. For anybody that doesn't know yet, I plan to move to South Carolina to, rejoin my wife who moved out there last summer. She has a job out at the University of South Carolina. So we kind of have our family split, and that's gonna continue until summer of 27 when our oldest graduates from high school. So that means like my last full calendar year on the board will be this year. So then next year I would just be here until the summer.
Charlie, can I ask a question? I mean,
Yeah.
because I'm looking at term endings for all of our positions, and it looks like the majority of us is ending on October. So what does that mean for the continuation of leadership?
All right, well, sorry, let me
Charlie Bryan, I see that you're,
scroll the page that you're looking at so everybody else can see it that's
Okay.
watching. So here's our little rotation. It's kind of how you can look at what your term is, when we're expecting it to expire. And Charlie Bryan's term ends in the middle of this year is what you're pointing out, right?
yes.
So the position I hold is as an independent director, so the board would have to reappoint me for another term. So that's a good point, though, because if I don't get reappointed, then if you guys don't reappoint me as a board member, then my term as the president also would expire in October. So you are maybe previewing like you can kick me out, I guess, after October if you don't want to
We have to
reappoint me.
wait until then to.
I think we'd wait until then.
Okay.
Yeah, because you'll see like the terms, so the 3 of us that are up for reappointment this October, me, Shannon, and Christina. So the 3 of us, this is the end of our first term, so. And, fingers crossed that Shannon will stay. No, you're shaking your head. Have you already told the city?
I had a conversation with somebody the other day, I'm taking the LBJ there. I will not see nor will I say.
Okay, well, we'll deal with that in October.
Okay.
So I know that's a city commission decision who they want to appoint. But sounds like Shannon won't won't be saying yes to a second term. And Christina, you'll be up for reappointment also, but that's the county commission decision, so. By the way, since we're on this page, if anyone hasn't been paying attention, we still do have Rebecca holding out because she hasn't been, her position hasn't been filled, and according to our bylaws, even though her term ended, she actually isn't done until we've replaced her. So that's why I have that in italics, because her term has kind of ended, but until you see it's right
So
up
we're
here.
looking for
Yeah,
somebody to bring to the board that would be board elected for that,
Yeah.
that position.
because the bylaws say right here, until the appointment of a successor or until such director's death, resignation, or removal. And I've talked to Rebecca, she understands that this is the case. She's technically still on the board. I told her if I ever needed her, I'll have to call her to get quorum, but we're not expecting her to show up.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of and she's actually the attorney we're losing, so it's like, we've been looking for, like, how do we find another attorney?
We need another lawyer.
Doesn't have to be, but it's like, considered it kind of a better practice to have like a CPA, an attorney. Those are the things we started with the fundraising committee, someone who is good at marketing, someone who understands the law, someone who's good at finance. Okay, let's go back to the officer election. So we've elected a president. The next one is the vice president. Are there any nominations for vice president?
I nominate John Crable.
All right. Thank you, Chaconi. Are there any other nominations for vice president? Okay,
I would nominate Megan to stay as and remain as vice president.
okay. Are there any other nominations for vice president? Okay. We have two people nominated for vice president. Would we like to ask them questions, or would you like to say anything? Either the nominees? John, Megan?
Listen, I'll tell you, I'm happy to do it if I'm needed, but I also know I'm pretty new to the board and still learning a lot about the organization. So, John's been doing this, and I'm just I don't have strong feelings about needing to be the vice president. I'm happy to do it if I'm needed, but if John is well equipped and prepared to do that and then become president when Charlie's finished, that seems smart to me too. So
Thanks, Megan. I guess that would be my question, would be. I'm gonna be leaving, so then like, are each of you open to taking that role next, so we kind of have that continuity plan? John, are you comfortable?
Well, I'll speak to that. So when you look at what we're just talking about, when terms end and whatnot. If we reappoint Charlie for another term,
We just did. Oh,
No.
the term, yeah, in October.
if we reappoint Charlie for another term, he would effectively be the president for this year and continue to serve on the board until he leaves in the summer of
27.
27. So if I were elected vice president today, I would be in that role for 1 year. And then in January 2027, be willing to move into the president's role, so long as that's what people wanted.
Mhm.
Okay. And serve in that role for 1 year. And then my term ends in October of 2028.
Yeah.
So in terms of my willingness to assume that role a year from now, the answer is yes.
Okay.
But I do want to be clear that it would be my desire to only serve in that role for 1 year. Even though I would still be on the board.
Yeah.
Until October of of that last year.
Okay.
So that's my,
Thanks, John. I think
And
that matters a lot to me because I wanted, my
It
hope
does
would be like,
matter.
we get
Sorry.
into I think I was just trying to say I appreciate that because I want to know that if we're gonna have someone take on VP, that they're ready to also step into that.
I guess
President role.
in my mind, if you think through that as I have attempted to, then that would give us the year that I would effectively be serving as the president of the board. We would have at the same time elected a new vice president.
Yep.
That would then be geared towards
Taking on that.
taking on that
Yeah.
role a year later.
Okay. That's
It's
what I was
also
looking
very nice to have a past president, so
Mhm.
that also gives us that space
for. All right.
for someone
Megan,
who's been
I know you
president
said you
and be
were-
past president for a while.
Megan, you also said you're willing to do this if needed, but you weren't. You sounded a little bit willing to maybe not be VP, so.
I am willing to not. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, when I became vice president, I think it was in a moment of need. I am brand new
Yeah,
to the board, and I'm happy to serve as needed, but I also understand that I am very much still in my first year in a learning space, so.
Okay. Are you suggesting you're not accepting the nomination, or do you want us to take a vote on this? I guess.
Let's do that. Let's make it easy, and I'll just say I don't want the nomination. We're gonna move forward
Okay.
that way, though I appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks. Then I guess we have just the one nominee. Do we want to vote on that? All right, all in favor of appointing John as the vice president, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, thanks, John. Next position, is it secretary next or treasurer? Treasurer is next. Do we have any nominations for treasurer?
Would like nominate Kevin
All right,
that role.
is there any other nomination? All right. Any questions, discussion? All right, then let's take a vote. All in favor of,
I mean, I guess I'm okay with that. I'm kind of new. I don't really know. You know a heck of a lot more about finances than the rest of us do.
Yeah.
I
You're
just don't know much
qualified than anyone else.
about the organization.
yeah,
So, yeah.
well,
Okay.
I think there's, we could all tell our story, how we got involved and kind of got thrown right in, but I think you're gonna be just fine. Financially, things are so much better right now than they have been, so that's,
This is not 2 years ago.
yeah. All right, then all in favor of appointing, Kevin as the treasurer, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed, say no. Motion passes, or election happens, so you're now the treasurer. Thank you very much. And the last position is secretary. Do we have any nominations for secretary?
I'll nominate Christina.
All right. Are there any other nominations? All right. Do you want to say anything, Christina?
I would accept that nomination.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right.
But just kind of looking at the notes, meeting minutes and all those things it would just be we'll talk more about that, but,
I think there's probably, as we have to adjust to the post executive committee
yeah.
thing, I do feel like I've already had thoughts on how do we get a better description of what work is assigned to every officer?
Yes.
And then, make that feel like it's more meaningful, because the way we do our minutes, it's really just, we record them,
Yes.
and we published it, so there's really not much, there's really not minutes.
Yeah.
Is it like an AI kind of?
No, we just published it on YouTube,
Oh,
so you
okay.
can watch our meeting.
Yeah,
So,
I will say when I submit minutes to our auditors, I do take the meeting script and we
Yeah.
run it through AI in agenda
Yeah.
format to get our minutes.
I think legally, the one thing we probably need to do that we don't do is when you have an executive session, you're supposed to have a record in the minutes that you, like when you go into executive session and when you come out of it. And that's the only legal requirement for minutes that I've found. Like otherwise, KOMA doesn't require minutes at all. But executive sessions, that is something that has to be documented.
Okay.
So.
But it's just the time in and time out, right? And who was there? It's not content.
Yeah.
It's the time in and time out. Yep.
And I find that it's best, but no action was taken.
Yeah, I mean, in the little draft that we're gonna have in executive session, I insert that also, because I think that's just making it clear to the public, like. Nothing happens in those sessions other than conversation about something that's essentially protected by law, so. Okay, then, all in favor of making Christina the secretary for another year, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. All right, officer elections are done. Thanks, everyone. And for those, I guess, Megan, you're the only one that's finished your short term as a stand-in VP when Chuck's term ended. Thank you for your service as a board officer.
You're
Yes.
very welcome.
Thank you, Megan.
Next item is the public comment policy. So this policy was actually adopted. Let me bring it up. It was adopted by the board in October of 2024. And it didn't get kind of implemented until just recently. And the board, the website, the LCS website has on its website now a list of it actually has the policy posted, and then it has a form that the public can use to submit a comment to the board. And if you haven't seen it, I shared out the policy, but this link goes basically to the board page. And then from the page, it has the link to the form and also has the policy itself. So the public's ability now to actually submit comments to the board has been actualized. This can actually occur. So for those that are also brand new to the board, I just wanted to give you some history of this. In the early days with the new board, there were people in the public that would come to our meetings. They would either join remotely or they'd come in person. And it was a little bit of a, there were people here. There was people here even recording our meetings. So it became clear we needed to find a way to manage that. Now legally, we don't have to have any public comments, but it just felt like a responsive, appropriate thing to provide some mechanism for that. So we didn't want it to become any grandstanding. So we said, let's allow it, but let's kind of contain it within a written process. So the public comment policy is submitted in writing. If you want to do it, say you don't want to write it out, you can call and leave a voicemail, and the voicemail gets transcribed, and then that becomes the public comment, basically the transcription of your message. And then the next step is this would go to the executive committee, who would screen the policy, screen the comment to basically triage it. If it's appropriate for, if it's a governance issue that's related to the board, then it would be presented to the board. If it's actually more of a staff issue or some operational concern, then that would get routed over to James. And so it's kind of a way to say, here's the form, submit whatever you want, and then we'll decide if that meets it fits inside our space or if it needs to be more of a James issue. Because what we were getting I was getting a lot of people commenting and telling me, their opinions about operations, which isn't really the board's place. So that a lot of those comments I imagine would end up going to James, not really to us. So that comment policy is overdue. In the one that we adopted, we said we'd review it annually, and should have been reviewed, I guess, last October. So I think we need to. This is one of those let's task this process of updating it to someone. I think it would probably make sense for the secretary. That's kind of what I was mentioning earlier. The job of the secretary isn't really well defined anyway, so I think this would be an easy way to say, hey, Christina, would you mind? Like, you know, we can work together if you want, just kind of like refine this, update it. We need to probably remove any reference to the executive committee. So I kind of highlighted like that obviously needs to be changed. The other, so that's in here a couple times. The other thing that occurred to me was the the process doesn't ensure that the board would always know that there was any public communication. And so I don't think that was our intention. But if a message gets communicated or received, and then it's deemed that it's not a board level, needs to go to staff, I think that's probably useful to at least acknowledge. Hey, we got 2 public comments this week or this month. They were both considered staff issues, so we directed those to James. Done. Or you could say, you know, we got 2 this month. One was routed to the board, one was routed to the staff. So you could at least have an accounting of it in case the public thought they never got, you know, their comment was never acknowledged. So in our meetings, we would at least account for it. So they would know it wasn't dismissed entirely, if that makes sense. And then the policy as it stands was, we're going to put it on the agenda to acknowledge that we have a public comment, but it doesn't mean that we have to talk about it. Doesn't mean we have to do anything about it. We just need to like have an opportunity for the board to have that discussion if you want to.
Platform.
Right. And that doesn't then invite the public comment person to come in and talk to us. It just means we need to decide, is this something we want to handle? What do we want to do about it? So it's more like just creating the skeleton for like how we're gonna handle it. And then if it's a comment that you think is worth having discussion, we would do it.
You guys don't want to go to a thing like the city commission meetings and just give somebody a.
I mean, yeah, I think that was the goal, was not to create that.
Kind of fun for us.
Anyway,
We going to.
you guys comfortable?
Oh, I'm sorry,
Go
Charlie.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So when we do this, so right now, but the secretary has delegated this task and we're aware of it, we have it. And are we gonna operate in the spirit of like Shannon just called out, like maybe we get a draft of this before
Next
the
meeting?
night of the meeting or before the day of the meeting, so we can, you know, if we are accepting it, or if we do have to make a decision together as a board, we have it and we have time to go through it. Is that how?
Yeah, I think what Shannon was throwing out is maybe one of our practices would be that it would be brought as a draft to the board, the next board meeting. Like this shouldn't take long to revise.
Right.
But we
right.
don't, there's no vote is taken at the next meeting, basically as a presentation of the draft.
We're
And
just
then-
aware that we understand what's happening with the tasks that are being delegated and are operating together as the board.
Right.
Okay.
So anything that would be tasked would typically then take at least 2 months to do.
Okay, so that if I'm not I'm going through KOMA because we're talking about it right now. I mean, I'm not like going outside of KOMA. I just sent a test email. So who receives those communications that come to public comment?
So right now it goes to an email account that pushes it to the executive committee members.
Okay,
So that'll have to probably be changed also.
okay,
So
good to know.
I think that's where we'll have to
Delineate
like,
between those.
clarify how what the policy should be, and also probably change some of them on the technical side. So that the correspondence is received by the secretary. And then the secretary would delineate, like, is this a board thing? Is this a staff issue? All right. Next item, personnel handbook, grievance procedure. So I handed out the grievance or the entire personnel handbook. And I wanted to point out that the board of directors is implicated in this personnel handbook in multiple ways. You know, it's even documented that the board is the one that has authority to change the handbook. So I hadn't paid a whole lot of attention to the personnel handbook until recently. And I think it helps. I just want to make sure the board knows that this handbook, as it's written, kind of tells us we have certain obligations. And it tells staff that we have certain roles that I think we need to be aware that we have, according to the current handbook. In particular, we have a role in staff grievances. And that, I think, can be problematic if we are not, I think it needs to be raised, I guess, for discussion. And what I would think is the grievances that are important to our board are grievances against the only employee we have. But the way it's written right now is any staff grievance ultimately gets arbitrated by the board if the staff member thinks that it hasn't been handled appropriately. So if there's a DSA that has an issue with Kim and they appeal it, eventually that comes to this board. And that seems a bit unusual in my mind. So I wanted to make it, like in my head, it's like this should be, personnel handbook is kind of an internal operations thing. The only personnel that we have is James. So that's kind of, I'm a little uncomfortable with the way this handbook is currently drafted. And the grievance procedure is kind of the one that I'd say, this doesn't seem appropriate. I don't have a clue what happens deep in the inside of the.
I'm very uncomfortable with it because if there's a discrimination claims brought and we were involved with basically no information or personal experience, we will be named in that.
Yeah.
Whoever the executive committee is or the, whatever this personnel committee, which I don't even know that there is one.
Yeah, there is no personnel.
I'm not comfortable with it at all.
Okay.
I mean, I never wanna make a decision based on double, triple hearsay.
Right.
Personally, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna be involved. And I really think this is the staff's policy and that we should task James and whoever he wants to assign to bring us back a new draft of this personnel manual. And then, like you say, the only involvement we should have is if there's a complaint against the executive director and not, and like, you know, like a serious complaint.
Mhm. Well, I don't know if you guys have paid attention to this grievance procedure, but it does kind of have this high level of responsibility for the board. We have to convene, there's a personnel committee that we don't even have. They have to basically do some work within the 5 days of receiving a grievance. It feels pretty impractical for us to do that work. Except perhaps in the case of how do we manage a grievance against the ED? And then when you read through the policy, it sounds like there's a grievance form. Best I can tell, there's actually no such grievance form. So I feel like this hasn't been, like, we haven't reviewed this handbook. It kind of implies that we're responsible for this handbook. And then in particular, the grievance process, it's got us on the hook for things that I don't think we want to be on the hook for. So I think we need to figure out, like, what are we gonna do about this? And want to get your thoughts on it. So,
How is it developed and generated in the first place?
I don't know.
We don't even, this was in place when,
I think all of us have inherited this and probably, the older boards probably have more hands-on involvement in managing the organization, perhaps. I'm not sure. But as it stands, it seems like it's out of sync with what we aspire to be as a board. And I think it also misconstrues to staff what our role is. And when you look at practices around good board governance, there's a much stronger line between what a board does and what the executive director does, and how staff engage with the executive director. So it feels like this just exacerbates that confusion around the role the board has. So.
May I add to this?
Sure.
I don't believe this is current.
Oh, it's not current?
I don't believe so.
Well, I got this from Mercedes a couple months ago, so.
There was one that Accent had done for us that includes the CBA.
Yeah.
And this one doesn't have the CBA in it.
Well,
So we might need to table this for the next board meeting.
okay. I guess maybe it would be helpful for us to see what that is, because
Yeah,
if it's taken away these issues, then I think let's follow that.
Actually,
Yeah,
if it still has some of the language, it's just added, yeah.
I mean, I think I'd be more comfortable directing staff and look at it. It still has some of these issues with us supervising everybody.
yeah,
Bring us a revised version.
okay.
And
Is that,
I mean, my handbook has a process for people to read for specific things to my board. I'm happy to share that. I'm sure
mhm.
the health department also has that.
I'm not sure we do, actually.
But I
I
mean,
mean, you're raising a good question. I think.
it's not
We do.
uncommon. That's not uncommon.
Yeah,
Right? But otherwise, if it's a different handbook, then send it to us, but
Yeah.
otherwise. I mean,
Do we have legal, like, going through these things,
yeah, that, we don't, I think that'd be, worth considering too.
I mean,
Right.
previously, the handbook that I have in mind that has our CBA included in it. Part of our benefits with being with Accent Professional Employer Organization, was that they had a legal team that was looking
Okay.
at our employee handbook, and we don't have that benefit anymore.
but we still have the handbook.
We should somewhere, that's why I'm like, I
was
Maybe
gonna
it's not
ask
good
if
luck.
this was outdated because it looks different. I
Yeah.
mean, there's some things that are here that I didn't notice before, which brings me to my next point. If we do have things like this that we have to look at, or if we're updating something, I think we need the version or the drafts, or we need documents of what it was before, what's been changed, the dates, of things that we're signing off on or agreeing on when it comes to this. So yeah, I guess the first start is getting the most up-to-date handbook though.
Yeah, let's do that. So James, would you be able to get that to the whole board so we can all feel like,
Can I ask one question before we get to that point?
sure.
It seems to me that regardless of the one we haven't seen from Accent, or this one, or both, it seems to me that maybe the direction should be to say to James, go look at both of them, look at the new one, and then bring us a policy, whether it's the one from Accent that it actually stands and is good, or make whatever adjustments need to be made. But I don't think we need to see it and then send them off to do the work and then see it again, unless that just slows us down a month.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, just
What you want.
bring us something. And by the way, I did check today, and we do have HR Pro with Paycheck. So if you want to run it by an HR professional, we are paying for that service, and we have handbook development in that service too. So
Me too. That's what I'm looking for. Looking for patient. Yeah. I was like, where's the notes for the people we just hired? We just hired out to help for our paychecks. And now I know it's been a little clunky, but delivery with paycheck. So yeah, I know that's probably bad, but we are paying for them.
Oh, that
to
was the
offer
payroll side of the house.
Right, but paychecks also works with the HR, and we could work with them.
So my point is, I just, can we make the decision to say, hey, James, go forward and look at all this policy, get the professional advice you need, and then bring us something?
Yes.
Does that sound
Yes.
Is that, can you bring something by next month? James?
I did find it. I have a copy of it, so.
I have it too.
And then they have HR individuals with this payroll company that can also deal with the grievances and a lot. That's
Yeah.
the proper
I
check.
think that's what we're hoping.
Stuff to go
Yeah.
through. So yeah, that resource.
All right, so. I don't think we need a motion, but what I'm hearing, unless you guys want a motion, is
Time is 7:30 and the library.
For the next
is closed
board
at
meeting.
8 p.m.
we would
We ask
have a
that you
draft
take your
of a,
library card to come to the accounts desk immediately, since we will stop issuing new cards in 15 minutes. Any children or teens needing help calling for a ride home should go to the children's desk now. Thank you.
And I just want to say, I don't want to slow us down with drafts and this and that, months and 2 months, but we need to be informed. We need to know what's going on. So how can we make the decisions without having the information we need? It may not take 2 months each time, or, that
Yeah.
might not be the way, but we definitely, to make the right, decisions or go down the right path, we need to have the correct information. I just wanted to point that out.
well, I think I don't know, what I was hoping we know is. What is the actual procedure we're following if we have a complaint against the executive director?
Well, and I
Like,
mean, I think that's really important, but I don't think we can answer that today, and I
Right.
think we need to get to our
We do.
executive session.
We
Because
do.
we're gonna close the
we
library,
do,
and I would say,
So we're not handing this out, or
No.
is this where the employees?
that's not the right one.
so it sounds like that's not even
It's the right
being
one.
used.
So we
That's
can go
comfortable.
That one.
Yeah.
Is that something the
HR
do you feel like that's next month we can do that? Okay,
The HR company should also have legal counsel on this, and like, it really shouldn't come down, I mean, for these items that are in here, I mean, that should be really kind of somebody else's decision. We're just kind of reviewing that, we're just
Right.
kind of taking off in terms of the responsibility. We're gonna have to trust the professionals that
Right.
know this.
right,
And there really shouldn't be much back and forth splitting over how we phrase this. We're gonna get something. It's gonna look pretty quick at a fast glance, and then we can vote on it.
I hope so.
Move quickly.
I hope so.
Okay, that's good.
Right.
That's good.
I think, and I would just like to know that it isn't intertwining board with
Right.
staff functions. It feels like right now it kind of does that, but obviously we're not even using it.
Yeah, there's a lot of highlighted areas in there, so.
All right,
I will
Yeah.
say the search right
No,
now
no, no.
does not,
I think we're ready to move on.
does not
Alright.
have board.
Any board member updates or comments from the board?
No.
Okay, so next item, we have 2 executive sessions tonight. And I'd like to go into the first one, if someone would want to make the motion.
How long do you think?
Let's try to do, well, I think we need more time on the second one, so let's try to do the first one maybe and come back out at 7:40,
Okay,
do the 7 minutes.
I move that the board recess into executive session to discuss personnel matters or with non-elected personnel, including receipt of confidential communications on board deliberation pursuant to KSA 40-75-4319. The open meeting will resume in meeting room C and on Zoom at 7:40. No binding action will be taken. Participants will be the board members, both in person and remote.
Thank you.
Good.
All right. There's no discussion. All in favor of the motion to go into executive session, board members only, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. We're back in open session. And is there a motion to go into the second executive session?
What do we want our time to be?
No, we get kicked out of the building here at 8 o'clock and they're pretty forceful about that.
4 minutes to 8 or what?
Yeah, we got to call in
50%.
James, correct?
Yeah,
No, we need to tell them to come back
I'll
inside.
go get James, somebody decide how long.
Okay, so,
How about seven?
Motion
7:55?
to go into executive decision, okay, making a motion to go.
So-
to-
The draft of the motion is in front of us.
Okay, yeah, there. And so,
Okay.
all right, so making a motion. Draft motion to enter executive decision, I move that the board. Recess and do executive session to discuss a matter relating to non-elected personnel. Including the executive director's annual performance evaluation and related matters pursuant to KSA 75-4319B1. The open meeting will resume in meeting room C and on Zoom at 7:55. Is that good? No binding action will be taken during the executive session. Participants in the executive session be board members and the executive director, both in person and remote.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of the motion to go into the second executive session, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. And